Welcome to Consortia Small Business Accountants Bookkeeping with QuickBooks Online video series. This is session 2, Bookkeeping Tools. This session presents modern leading small business bookkeeping, payroll, and accounting technology, hardware, and applications that maximize efficiency and productivity. The Bookkeeping with QuickBooks Online training is based on our Bookkeeping with QuickBooks Online guide. Now, as far as bookkeeping support tools, we're going to talk about the PC or personal computer, dual monitors, cloud computing, Microsoft 365, e-commerce website, online bank and credit card accounts, QuickBooks Online ecosystem, and artificial intelligence or AI. So as far as a personal computer or PC, it's the most versatile and efficient tool in just about any present-day vocation. If the user is stationary, a desktop PC is the most versatile PC. If the user is mobile, a laptop PC is the most versatile PC. If a person is stationary and mobile, they generally have a desktop and a laptop PC. However, we recommend just a laptop. Now, allow me to explain. So, personally, I work in the office, I work from home, and I work on the road. And so the point is that that's the reason why I personally, and most people, that is the professional staff in our organization, prefer the laptop as well. But let me just explain here. So if I were sitting at my office desk, you would find that I obviously have my laptop, and as we'll talk about, dual monitors. I have a docking station. I have a wireless keyboard and a wireless mouse. Now, if you were to go to my home and look at my desk, you'll find that I have the dual monitors, the same dual monitors, by the way, a docking station, a wireless keyboard, and a wireless mouse. So what's wonderful, at least from my perspective, is that I always have my laptop with me. So when I go to the office, I bring my laptop, I set it on my desk, I literally plug it into my docking station, and immediately I have access to my dual monitors, my wireless keyboard, my wireless mouse, and of course my docking station by just using one plug and plugging it in. Now, if I were to unplug my laptop, that is from the docking station, go home, take my laptop with me. If I were to go home, sit at my desk, I have the exact same tools. And again, all I do is put my laptop down and I plug it in and I'm good to go. So we find that to be the most efficient and effective. Now, obviously it costs a little money to duplicate all those things at home and on the road, but it just helps us to have access to the best tools to perform bookkeeping and other matters. Now, as far as dual monitors, to maximize productivity, we recommend bookkeepers use a dual monitor setup. This involves having two monitors set up and used simultaneously side by side. This makes it easier to organize, manage, and perform bookkeeping by displaying multiple programs or documents at a time. If you use a laptop, you have 3 screens to operate with. So for the most part, on the left-hand side is where I'll have my source documentation, for example. On the right-hand side is where I'll have QuickBooks Online. And so I just love having dual monitors to be able to have access to both of those simultaneously. Now, if I happen to need an extra monitor, once again, I have my laptop, so I can use that as well. As far as Microsoft 365, it's formerly Microsoft Office 365, is a cloud-based subscription service that combines Word, that is word processing, Excel, spreadsheets, Outlook, email, and PowerPoint for presentations, with a OneDrive, cloud-based file storage service. The subscription allows users to create and share documents at any time and from anywhere on any device. Now, You may just want to have a personal or home Microsoft 365 subscription. It's not that much, and even that has 3 different options. Gives you more software. But typically you would need just a basic program. On the other hand, within our office, we use Microsoft Teams, which in a sense is Microsoft 365 on steroids. Okay, there's many more applications, so on and so forth. The main application overall is the fact that as a team, we're able to share documents quite easily and, of course, communicate with one another. So in other words, Microsoft Teams, for the most part, the way you'd look at it is that you use it within your office, for example, for communication. I never have to walk down the hall and talk to somebody or whatever the case may be because everything is done through Teams as far as communication. As far as an e-commerce website, a website is a collection of web pages of codes that describe the layout, format, and content on a page. A website resides on a web server. A web server is an internet-connected computer that receives a request for a web page sent by a web browser. A web browser connects your device to the web server through an IP or Internet Protocol address. Electronic commerce, or e-commerce, refers to companies and individuals that buy and sell goods and services over the Internet. E-commerce operates in different types of market segments and can be conducted over computers, tablets, smartphones, and other smart devices. Now, as far as online bank and credit card accounts, the point being made here is that obviously it's a normal bank account and it's a normal credit card account. However, as far as access, typically everything is done online. And let me explain. So, online bank and credit card accounts allow you to access, manage, and process your bank and credit card accounts with an internet-connected device such as a computer, laptop, or phone, or tablet. So, as far as online banking, in the old days when we started, we continuously were going to the bank throughout the week, maybe once a day, whatever the case may be. I haven't seen the inside of a bank for years because everything is done online. So what can we do online? So you can view current and past transactions. You can check your balances. You can view current and previous bank statements, deposit checks, transfer funds, pay bills, and import transactions into QuickBooks Online. So virtually anything you'd want to do with your bank account can be done, obviously, with your computer online. The same thing for the most part as far as online credit cards. So you can view current and past transactions, check your balances, view current and previous credit card statements, pay your bill, view your rewards balance, which is another very important thing we'll talk about later, report lost or stolen credit cards, import transactions into QuickBooks Online. So again, a very versatile tool makes life a lot easier, more convenient, and more productive and efficient. Now, let me introduce you to what we call the product life cycle. You may hear me talk about this in other sessions, but the idea is this is going to apply to QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. But with any product life cycle, business life cycle, service life cycle, it'll begin as being new, it'll grow, it'll mature, and it'll decline. So where is QuickBooks Desktop? Well, that's what we'll talk about. So as far as a product lifecycle management, so in other words, you manage your product or your service differently based on where it is in the product lifecycle. You may or may not do things with new products or services. You may or may not do things with emerging or mature or declining. So product lifecycle management refers to the handling of a product or service as it moves through the 4 stages of its life. So that's why we want to talk about QuickBooks Desktop versus QuickBooks Online. So obviously desktop is in the declining stage, and within the next year or two it'll be dead. Online obviously is in the growing stage, more of the latter part of emerging, okay, growing quite rapidly. So QuickBooks Desktop Lifecycle Management. So You'll notice, and we've noticed this for quite some time, we've been trying to talk people into merging from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online starting in 2013. And in 2013, Intuit, the makers of QuickBooks, they basically started all over. They overhauled the entire application for QuickBooks Online. And that's when it began to become good. Now, the problem was at that time, there were many features that were on desktop that were not on online. And so if we had clients that were needing those features, obviously we'd tell them to stay online. But as time went on, the online version began to acquire the exact same features, in fact, many other features that desktop did not have, and became a much better product. So we've been preaching that to the choir here for quite some time, okay? And when you began to really notice that it was time to change, is you would notice that Intuit decreased QuickBooks Desktop advertising. They decreased QuickBooks Desktop products and prices. They retracted QuickBooks Desktop markets. So for example, they'd be going to Canada or Great Britain, wherever the case may be, and they began to pull out of those markets. Intuit has decreased QuickBooks Desktop new or improved features over the last 5 or more years. So the point is this. Intuit announced the discontinuation of QuickBooks Desktop in 2021 by May 31st, 2024. So in other words, May of last year, they discontinued QuickBooks Desktop. And they will stop selling, or they stopped selling, certain subscriptions of QuickBooks Desktop, the main ones, Pro, Premier, and Mac Plus, and enhanced payroll after July 31st, 2024. Existing QuickBooks Desktop users faced the choice of upgrading to a newer version, switching to QuickBooks Online, or exploring alternative accounting software. While QuickBooks Desktop won't or hasn't disappeared immediately, Intuit's shift focus on cloud-based application signals a shift away from supporting local applications. So the point being made is that you could not buy or you cannot buy QuickBooks Desktop, including the subscription, after May 31st of last year. That was it. But for those who had a subscription, they could continue. So they can continue even now, a year later. They're thinking more of about 3 years. So in other words, after 3 years, or basically 2027, May 31st, it'll be totally dead. You won't have access to it, nothing. Will it continue to work if you have it? Yes, but there'll be no upgrades, no patches, no nothing from that point on. Okay? All right, so as far as QuickBooks Online, prior to the discontinuation of QuickBooks Desktop, Intuit stated that over 80% of new QuickBooks users chose QuickBooks Online. So that's what they were waiting for. It's kind of hard to all of a sudden go to millions of subscribers and say, hey, just so you know, we're going to take away your product, starting May of this year. You can keep using it, but it's gone after 3 years. And so obviously that number, in other words, they waited until they had a majority of people getting on QuickBooks Online subscription to make that announcement, and of course to implement that strategy. And so obviously now nobody can get desktop, and so if anybody is wanting to use QuickBooks, they obviously have no choice but to use QuickBooks Online, which is a good thing, by the way. So what's the attraction of QuickBooks Online? So it's a cloud-based, seamlessly integrated QuickBooks Online ecosystem. Now, many of you know this, some of you don't. And so let me explain. So we talk about QuickBooks Online, but QuickBooks Online is one product within what they call the QuickBooks Online ecosystem. Now, before I get into that, let me explain the reason why we've been preaching this for so long, okay? And so years ago, in fact, it's interesting, when I was just leaving high school going into college, is when personal PCs were becoming more popular, and we were just learning on them, for example, my first year of school, college that is. And so the point being made is that I remember they had a compact, what they would call, now they call a laptop, but it was this big old box, and it's just funny. It's just, for those of you who aren't as old as I am, it really is too bad you missed the conversion of computers from what they were to what they are. Quite amazing, actually. But the point being made is that it used to be called personal computing. And so you would have a monitor, you'd have a desktop, and so the applications and the data resided on that desktop. So if you didn't have access to your desktop, you didn't have access to your applications and your data, period. So then, of course, as time went on, computers became more sophisticated, and this was more for larger, small offices and, of course, eventually large organizations. And so they began using network computing. So, in other words, they would have the applications and the data reside on a network computer. And then, of course, they would have terminals. Some of them were referred to as dumb terminals because they themselves had no applications on them. It was nothing more than accessing the network computer. And others had some intelligence to it. You could do certain things within the computer itself. But the bottom line is, in an office, you would have, as you see here, 4 monitors or terminals that were accessing the network. And again, going to and using, of course, the apps and data on that one server. And by the way, in the old days, you would freak out if your network computer or even your PC if you lost your hard drive. And I had one of those experiences, unfortunately. And so if that happened, you were dead meat. Whereas today, no biggie, as we'll talk about. Okay, so cloud computing. So as you all know, the idea is the reason why it's referred to as the cloud, of course, is that it's in cyberspace. And so the point being made is that you have a cloud provider or what they call a data center. So like Intuit has their own data centers, one in California and one obviously in Texas. May have more than that. But the point being made is that it resides in what's called the cloud, okay, or on the internet basically. And so the point being made is that you'll have a laptop, you'll have a mobile phone, you'll have a desktop, or you'll have a tablet. And they all can, via the internet, they can all access the applications and data, in the data center. So you all understand that. So the benefits obviously are number one, access. You can access your applications or data at any time from anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. And these days in the world, that's not hard to do. You can I travel a lot and I rarely find myself in a situation where you don't have access. And shared access, which is wonderful. People can share that data and those applications. No updates required, no backups required. That is on your end. And of course, the security is for the most part taken care of with the data center and no maintenance or hardware costs. Okay. And so the only thing you have to worry about in the scenario I'm painting for you today is you just have your laptop. That's it. That's all you need. Okay, so now what I want to do is, as I talked about, I want to introduce you to what's called the QuickBooks Online ecosystem. So here you find the ecosystem. On the left-hand side, you have QuickBooks Online Bookkeeping. So in other words, for the most part, if you're wanting to do just bookkeeping, if you're a small business, you're wanting to do your books, you'll buy QuickBooks Online. You'll buy a subscription. Now, if you have employees and you're wanting to obviously process your payroll, your reports, so on and so forth, you're going to use QuickBooks Online Payroll. And then, of course, if you want to receive payments, you can also use what's called QuickBooks Online Payments. In other words, it's their merchant account that you can use, you can subscribe to, and of course use it just like you can any other type of service. And then you have ProConnect Tax Online. And then you have third-party applications. One of the ones that we use is called Fathom. Fathom is a great business analysis or financial analysis tool, and it just gets better and better all the time. But there's many, many others. And then you have, of course, QuickBooks Online Accountant. And so if you have a bookkeeping or accounting business, the idea is you're going to have accountant, and the idea is, and by the way, we have a QuickBooks, Accounting QuickBooks Online session, training session that we present, and that'll help you identify how you can take the most from Online Accountant. But if you had a small business providing bookkeeping or accounting services, you would be using QuickBooks Online Accountant. You would be doing your own accounting and analysis on that for yourself. But at the same time, you'll have easy access to all of your clients. Boy, and when I sit there and think about what we used to have to do. A long time ago, we'd have to save it on a drive, or a thumb drive or whatever. Transfer these these sticks back and forth, kind of a thing. And then eventually went to saving an accounting file and transferring files back and forth, which of course was much better, but still was nothing compared to what it is today. And so now, if you're not familiar with QuickBooks Online Accountant, and I have, say, 10 clients, I can just go on there. I click a down arrow. It shows me my clients. I pick the one I want. Boom, I'm in their books immediately. And I can communicate with them, email them back and forth, transfer files. Documents. It's just absolutely fantastic. But again, we'll talk about that in our accounting with QuickBooks Online Accountant. So the point being made is that they have all these products, and the beauty of it is that they seamlessly work together. So if I'm using QuickBooks Online Accountant and my client's using QuickBooks Online, there's seamless integration. If my client is using QuickBooks Online Payroll, seamless integration with all three: QuickBooks Online Payroll, QuickBooks Online Accountant. Okay. The same thing with QuickBooks Online Payment. The same thing with ProConnect Tax Online. Now, I should say that it's not as seamless as we'd like, but overall, for the most part, if you're doing tax preparation, you can upload the information from your QuickBooks Online Accountant or QuickBooks Online to be able to begin to make your tax preparation a lot more efficient. And then again, there's many third-party applications, such as the one I mentioned, as Fathom. So we live in a wonderful time. For those of you who aren't as old as I am and don't appreciate what we have today, it's absolutely amazing compared to where we came from. I've mentioned to you before that I remember when I very first started for the first accounting firm, 1984, everything was done manually. Okay, I'd have a stack of checks, the client's checks for the last month. I'd have a stack of invoices. I'd have the actual bank statements, and I had to input. First of all, I had to code everyone. What Intuit would call categorization, classify. So I go through all the hundreds of checks and each one, and I write the chart of account code on it and do all that. Do the same thing with the invoices, for example. Then once all the coding's been done manually, then you begin to enter each one. And it was just, it was a pain in the rear compared to the way it's done now. And by the way, that's the reason for this presentation, is because not necessarily today, but when we talk about sales and receipts and other things, we're going to talk about what's called accounting process automation. And actually, that's just part of AI, which we'll talk about here shortly. Okay, QuickBooks Online new features. Intuit continues to make QuickBooks Online a priority. In the past year, QuickBooks Online new features and improvements have been significant. Boy, I'll tell you, you get to a point to where the product is just so good, you're like, what else could they do to it, to make it better? And yet they continue to make it a much better product than it was the previous year. It's kind of hard to keep up, to be honest with you, okay? But you don't necessarily have to use all the features. It depends on what you do, what industry you're in. But most of the features obviously are very significant and helpful. Now, what we used to call in this presentation accounting process automation, we now call AI, because that's what it is. But the point is that accounting process automation automates traditional routine manual processes. Automation improves the speed, accuracy, and reliability of everyday transactional documents such as sales and receipts and purchase and payments. And so this year we've updated the presentation to where we get into AI. So that's what I'm about to do, but we used to talk about many of the things we'll be talking about with AI because it was AI doing the actual accounting process automation. Okay, so speaking of artificial intelligence, or AI, it's revolutionizing bookkeeping by automating repetitive tasks, enhancing accuracy, providing real-time insights, and ultimately freeing up bookkeepers and accountants to focus on higher value activities. Now, let me stop there a second. As you know, we educate bookkeepers. and through our school. And one of the reasons and things that we like about that is that it used to be when I started years ago, you would have a bookkeeper and they would do nothing more than recognize a financial transactions occurred, they would record it, and they would classify it. And that's it. That's all they would do. Okay, it was their job. They may follow up on AR, AP if you work for a large corporation or something like that. But for the most part, that's what a bookkeeper did. Okay, and the accountant took it from there as far as the actual steps in the accounting cycle. Okay, now we're getting to a point to where we can train our bookkeepers to practically do anything and everything an accountant can do, quite frankly. Okay, it takes time and effort. For example, we first teach them to master bookkeeping, and then we go on to start teaching them accounting, and then we go on and start teaching them accounting analysis. And so, which is really what accountants typically do. But if they're properly trained, properly supervised, you can get these people to do pretty much everything an accountant can do. And that's what we've done internally. But of course, we also do it through our school. Now, back to this. This shift is not about AI replacing human expertise. That's what people are freaking out about. It amazes me. You hear all these posts or see all these posts where people are talking about, oh, AI is going to get to the point to where we're not needed as a bookkeeper. We're not needed as an accountant. I just don't see that happening. We are so far from that, and I just can't see it's ever going to happen. And we'll kind of talk about that today. So AI replacing human expertise, but rather augmenting it and transforming the bookkeeping profession. So in other words, making it better, okay, is the whole point. And the point I was trying to make earlier is that bookkeepers are kind of encroaching on, and that's fine, again, as they're properly trained and supervised on accountants' roles and doing things what accountants traditionally do. And I think that's fantastic, to be honest with you. Okay, so AI impact on bookkeeping. So number one, automation of routine tasks. Number two, enhanced accuracy and error reduction. Number three, real-time financial visibility and insights. Four, scalability and cost savings. Five, improved compliance and fraud detection. And six, shifting roles and new opportunities, which is kind of what I was talking about. But the point being made here is that this is how AI is impacting the bookkeeping and accounting profession, okay, through these six things. So let's talk about these things. So as far as automation of routine tasks, so we now have automated data entry. We have invoice processing and matching. And again, if you're familiar with QuickBooks Online and how you import transactions from the bank account or the credit card account, that's exactly what you're doing. Invoice processing and matching, or categorization, again, is what QuickBooks will say. Bank reconciliation and expense categorization. Okay. So again, if you're using QuickBooks, all these things are taking place now. So enhanced accuracy and error reduction. AI minimizes errors by automating data processing and entry, reducing the risk of typos, misclassifications, and other human mistakes. It detects inconsistencies and anomalies in financial data that might indicate errors, fraud, or noncompliance. So as far as real-time financial visibility and insights, AI-powered bookkeeping software provides immediate access to up-to-the-minute financial data and reports. It analyzes financial data, identifies trends, and offers insights into spending patterns, cash flow, and profitability. This real-time visibility empowers businesses to make informed decisions and proactive decisions based on current financial health. And that's why we love it, because this last part is what we're all about with our firm working with small business clients. Scalability and cost savings. AI bookkeeping can handle increasing volumes of transactions without proportional increases in staffing or resources, making it scalable for growing businesses. Automating tasks reduces the need for extensive manual labor, potentially leading to cost savings on hiring full-time bookkeepers or outsourcing. It's not saying that there will no longer be bookkeepers or outsourced bookkeepers. What it's saying is that one person can handle a lot more. So in other words, when it used to be that you'd have 4 people on your staff, handling certain things, well, AI may be able to reduce that to 2. Okay. As we talk about, they're able to do a lot more efficiently. And that's what AI does. Doesn't eliminate them, but perhaps eliminates a number of them. And that's probably the worst thing that can happen. But overall, the benefits are just amazing. Improve compliance and fraud detection. AI systems can be programmed to stay updated with the latest tax laws and financial regulations, ensuring compliance and accurate reporting. AI can analyze transaction data to identify unusual patterns or anomalies that may indicate fraudulent activity, enhancing security and risk management. Shifting roles and new opportunities. While AI automates many traditional bookkeeping tasks, it allows bookkeepers and accountants to focus on higher value activities, as we talked about earlier, such as strategic planning, financial analysis, and providing advisory services. This shift necessitates the development of new skills, including proficiency in AI tools, data analysis, and strategic thinking. Now, as far as AI challenges and considerations, and there's basically 5. Number 1, data security and privacy. Number 2, integration with existing systems. Number 3, learning curve and training. Number 4, client concerns. And number 5, human oversight. So, as far as data security and privacy, AI systems handle sensitive financial data, raising concerns about cybersecurity threats and data breaches. Integrity with existing systems. Integrating AI solutions with legacy accounting software can be challenging. Learning curve and training. Adopting AI requires upskilling staff to effectively use the new tools and interpret the results. And by the way, that's what this course is all about. Again, as we get into actual transactions in future sessions, we'll be talking about, again, what's now AI and how it helps to do that as we take advantage of those tools that are available to us. And that's one of the main things we present to you in these presentations. Client concerns. Some clients may be hesitant about AI-driven bookkeeping, requiring education and reassurance about the role of human oversight. Human oversight. AI tools still require human review and validation to ensure accuracy, interpret data effectively, and address complex situations that require professional judgment. So as far as best practices for AI adoption in bookkeeping, 1, assess current workflows. And by the way, that's what our guidebooks are all about. That's what we do. And so with this AI, it's causing us to make major changes, okay, in our guidebooks, whether it be our bookkeeping guidebook, our accounting guidebook, our payroll guidebook, or our tax guidebooks. But obviously AI is putting us to where we're having to do more updates every year because it becomes more powerful to help us with efficiency and productivity. So number 1, assess current workflows. Number 2, outline clear objectives. Number 3, research and select appropriate AI tools. Number 4, invest in staff training. Number 5, educate clients. And number 6, monitor performance and refine processes. And that's one of the reasons why we do so many videos, not just for potential bookkeepers, not just for independent bookkeeping and accounting firms, and not just for small business clients, but for all of those combined, because we're all we're all involved in these changes, which are rapid. And so it's important that we make sure that we do educate our clients on what's happening, as well as investing in staff training, so on and so forth. Number 6, monitor performance and refine the processes. And so again, that's what our guidebooks are all about. We're doing these 6 things in bookkeeping, in payroll, in accounting, and of course in tax preparation. So assess current workflows. So identify repetitive, time-consuming tasks that can benefit most from automation. And that's what we do in our guidebooks. Online clear objectives. Define specific goals for implementing AI. Don't be afraid of it. It's coming. It's here. Take advantage of it. It'll bless your lives, truly, such as improving efficiency, reducing errors, or enhancing data analysis. Research and select appropriate AI tools. Choose software that aligns with your needs, integrates with your existing systems, and prioritizes data security. Invest in staff training. Provide training and support to ensure your team can effectively use AI tools and understand their role in the transformed workflow. Educate clients. Transparently communicate the benefits and limitations of AI-driven bookkeeping to build trust and address concerns. Monitor performance and refine processes. Continuously assess the effectiveness of AI tools and make adjustments to optimize their performance over time. AI summary. By embracing AI, bookkeeping professionals can streamline operations, enhance accuracy, improve decision-making, and offer more valuable advisory services, ultimately transforming their practices for the future. Okay, so that's a quick and dirty as far as bookkeeping tools with our AI update. Just so you know, for those of you who are with us, meaning that you listen to our videos, watch our videos, I should say, this is what we'll be focusing on. Now, again, the rest of the series, that's what we'll be focusing on is AI, so on and so forth. But we try to keep on top of this so that you don't have to, quite frankly. We make it easy for you. We always talk about research and development. We do a lot of R&D. And a lot of it's not just for new products and new clients for our new products and services for our clients, but a lot of it is just becoming better at what we do and taking advantage of technologies out there. And so that's why we have these videos. And so as time goes on, you're going to find that we're going to have a lot more centered on taking advantage of AI, for example. Now, next time we'll talk about setting up your company. And then we're going to talk about, and by the way, again, we'll talk about AI with each one of these, but we'll talk about setting up your company. Then we'll talk about processing bank and credit cards, processing sales and receipts, processing purchase and payments, and communicating business performance. Now, let me just tell you here that if you're expecting a QuickBooks program, in other words, you're expecting us to sit there and tell you line by line, how you set up an invoice or how you process an invoice. We're not going to do that in this session. We're going to talk about things that underline the foundation to these things. Yeah, we'll talk about where they fit in, but just so you know, we're creating videos now. There's been so many changes, it's like we keep holding off. But for the most part, as we finish these sessions, if you were to look at the guidebook, for example, and where we do include, how you do this in QuickBooks, that's all there. But as far as the videos, we just don't want to spend time there because there's so many more important things you need to understand about setting up a company or processing bank and credit cards, processing sales and receipts. And so the rest of this is not going to be, how you process bank and credit cards in QuickBooks step one. Set up this, do this. It isn't viable. So what I'm saying to you is that we will have videos for you to look at if that's what you're looking for. But as far as this series, I'm going to spend more important time on the background and things that you really should know. And hopefully you'll begin to see that as we start getting into setting up your company and process your bank and credit cards, so on and so forth. But again, we're trying to be as helpful as we can be. Thanks for attending today. Again, we look forward to you attending, setting up your company next time, and have a wonderful day. Bye.